Hi, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Alexis Alvarez, and I'm the Director of Statewide Training at Florida Legal Services. I'm going to try to take it slow while we let folks trickle on in, join the virtual world. Last time I checked, we had over 100 people registered for this webinar, so I want everyone to be able to get settled and get ready to learn about this awesome and important topic. So welcome to Legal Research Refresher. The title speaks for itself. This is what we're talking about today. Legal research, a refresher on legal research for our seasoned attorneys and our new attorneys, anyone who's out there doing legal research, which we all know we are, and who has questions or who maybe forgot something they learned before, or who just wants to sit down and have a lesson on this topic, which you maybe haven't had since law school. So thank you very much for joining today. I hope that this is helpful to you. I think it will be. Before we move into the content, I want to give a shout out to the Public Interest Law section of the Florida Bar for co-sponsoring this with us. If you aren't already a member of PILS, the Public Interest Law section, think about joining. It's a really cool organization with like-minded people, all working in the public sector, doing good work out there. So if you're thinking about joining, I'll drop that link into the chat. And hope to see you at some of our future events and meetings. Additional housekeeping announcements before we get into introductions and then we get into the content. First and foremost, like all of my trainings, this is being recorded, and a copy of the recording will be sent to all of you who are here or who registered and have to hop off early because we know you've got lots to do. So this is being recorded. You'll have the opportunity to look back on it, pull it up in your own private space when you're having that tough research question. So being recorded. Second piece of housekeeping announcements, our CLE credit. As most of you who attend my trainings know, my trainings are typically afforded CLE credit through the Florida Bar. The application materials have been submitted for this training, and I expect to receive a response hopefully within the next week or so on that approval. As you all know, I always get that accreditation for you, so don't worry, this will be approved. I won't be surprised if it's also approved for some technology credits. So keep an eye out. I have all of your email addresses, all of your names, and I will be sure to make sure you get that CLE code. Final piece of housekeeping announcements, questions and answers. I know I say this all the time. The virtual world is tough. It's hard to feel collaborative. It's hard to feel like you're heard and seen, but please know you are. We want to hear from you. We want to know your questions, your thoughts. I know this is a topic that can sometimes feel embarrassing to ask questions about, right? Don't be shy. Ask them now. We have our speaker live with us today, and she's truly an expert in this field. So ask your questions in the chat or the Q&A. We'll answer them at the end. And before I move into introductions, I did see in the chat that somebody said I went on mute. Can everyone just confirm for me in the chat that you can hear me? Just a couple of people let me know. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Perfect. So you guys rock. You're the best. Now that I know you all can hear me, I am going to introduce our speaker, and I have the extreme pleasure to showcase her and share this platform with her. Today with us, we have Katie Miller, who is a law librarian at Florida State University College of Law, where she teaches an advanced legal research course to upper level students. Before joining FSU in 2010, Katie worked as a staff attorney to the first DCA, an associate at a small litigation firm, and a conflict specialist at Latham & Watkins in Washington, D.C. Katie received her joint JD MLIS from FSU and her BA from Penn State. So, like I said, everyone, we have a very, very special training today with someone who is an expert in this field. Welcome to Legal Research Refresher. Katie, the floor is yours. Thank you so, so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, so close to the holidays. I know there's finals and all these things happening with students. Thank you for being here and teaching us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Alexis, and thanks everyone for joining. I'm going to go over some research tricks and some tips to help you find what you need more quickly. I'm going to talk about some developments and changes in legal research and show you some resources that hopefully you didn't know about before. So I always try to explain to the law students that legal research can be easy. What you guys do practicing law is hard. On a daily basis, you do it. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for the work you do. But legal research, it should be easy. And if you're getting frustrated and if you can't find what you need, there's people out there, there's strategies out there that can help you so that it's not the most difficult part of your day. So I'm going to talk about research for about an hour. So it's a lot of little things, a lot of stuff. And so I've created a web page that has all the links that I'm going to talk about. And I just posted that in the chat. So if you want to go back to that later, anything that I was talking about, there's going to be a link. And I think Alexis is going to send that out as well. So to get started. So just kind of a refresher that applies to research generally. So this applies in Westlaw and Lexis, but also applies in Google. So you have two types of searching. You have either natural language, also plain language or how you speak, versus Boolean searching or advanced searching. So when you use a natural language search, it's like how you speak. It's like what you put in the database at Google, like on that main search. And we rely on the database's algorithm to decide which words are important and like to find your results. You don't have to put in synonyms. You can just kind of give it whatever you want, and it's going to give you a lot of results. And hopefully the top results are the most relevant, but it saves you time because you don't have to really construct a search. But there's, the other side of it is Boolean searching. And that's when you use and or not, those words in between keywords. Or you use proximity connectors or advanced searching, which we'll show a little bit later. And when you use Booleans, you have more control over your results. You see fewer results. Sometimes you don't see any results if you put in too many. But you kind of just decide whether you want to take more time to develop your search and maybe get more relevant results, or if you want to just use natural language. And so there's different circumstances where you use each one. So let's kind of take a look at Boolean searching and just kind of a refresher for those and or nots and how they work. So for Boolean refreshers, you would put two or more words with the words between them. So in this case, if you needed to find cases with supermarkets and negligence, it's going to search the whole universe of cases, give you everything with supermarket, give you everything with negligence, but then your results are only going to be where it overlaps. So it's a way to narrow results. And then each time you add additional terms, you're going to get less and less results. So adding deport, lawful permanent residence, and aggravated felony, you're going to get less than if you had just used two of those. So and is a way to narrow the results that you see. So when you use or, it's going to expand, right? So you're going to use or for synonyms or closely related words, and you're going to put both of them in, and you're going to see the entire universe of cases where either judge or court appears in the case. And then there's nots. I typically use not as a subsequent search or a second search. So if I've run a natural language search or a Boolean search, and I'm getting a lot of results that have something wrong or irrelevant in them, I'll run a not search to kind of take whatever's similar about those wrong answers and remove it. So in this case, I want cases that talk about capital, but not gains. Another example is if you're doing a RICO search, you want to put in RICO, not Puerto, so you don't see all the cases where Puerto Rico is mentioned. And again, this is going to narrow your results, so you see less results. And then we have phrase searching, which is when you put multiple words in a quotation marks. And this is a way to find just that phrase. So like habeas corpus or pro se. But the warning is not to use phrase searching if there are alternative ways to talk about something. So if a court might say procedural due process, but they're also saying due process violation, or 5 different other iterations of that phrase, you probably don't want to use phrase searching because you're going to only see the one that you provided, unless you list all of the variations in your search. So another example is like blood alcohol level. It might be described by the court as alcohol in the defendant's blood. And so since you're not going to be able to figure out all the different ways that a court uses that phrase, you might just avoid phrase searching for that one. Okay, so those kind of research tips apply to everything, Westlaw, Lexis, Google, but I want to take a close look at advanced Google and some really helpful research options that they have on their advanced searching. So first, to get to this page, it used to be on the main page. You could go up and click an icon, but they kind of moved it around and hide it. So it's harder to get to. So I just Google advanced Google to get this form. But I've also included it on that URL website that I've put in the chat. So this is the form that helps you build an advanced search. And the top of the form is basically helping you do the Boolean search. So if you can never remember the and, the ors, and the nots, you can use this form instead. So the first one is all of these terms. And so it's like putting an and in between them. And then you have this exact word or phrase, which is going to be like that phrase searching in quotation marks. Any of these words is an or search, and none of these words is a not. So it's going to remove things. So this is helping you build your Boolean, but then the really key, like wonderful, efficient things are down at the bottom. So you can filter your results by language. So once you've input some keywords, you could decide you only want certain language results, certain regions, or usage rights. So if you're looking for something for like an image that is free to use, or free for nonprofits to use, you can filter by usage rights. So my favorite fields, because I'm a librarian and I have favorite Google search fields, are the site or domain, terms appearing, and the file type. So file type down here at the bottom, the choices are things like PDF or PowerPoint or Excel documents. So you can limit your results to just PDFs. And this is really helpful when you're looking for something that's more authoritative. So not that everything that appears in a PDF is automatically more reliable, but people post reports or authenticated documents as PDFs. And so when you just look at PDFs, you're more likely to get kind of those reports and things that are more reliable. I often do PowerPoint searches. You can find conference proceedings. You can find, presentation by government employees, either overviews or kind of deep dives into topics. So again, choosing file type PowerPoint, another really helpful way to narrow your results. Then we have terms appearing. So this can be anywhere on the page, so it's just kind of a passing reference, or if you want to narrow in, you can put it as the page title, or it appears in the web address, or links to the pages that you're looking for. So that's the terms appearing. And then we have site or domain. And this is really great. You can type in, we can use this in a couple of different ways. So you can type in .gov, .edu, or .org. That's all. You can just put one or all three. If you put all three, it's only going to give you results that come from .gov, .edu, or .org. So it's essentially eliminating commercial sites. If you put in .edu, you're just going to get K2 university websites that end in edu. So if you're looking for something coming out of research or coming from a university, you could use .edu. There is slight warning because we're not necessarily consistent with our .gov, especially in Florida. Some of ours end, it's like .fl, .us, but generally using .gov will get you government documents. And so that's a really great way to filter out some of the junk that seems to kind of bubble up in Google when you do searching, get rid of some of the commercial stuff and zero in on .gov.edu or sites from nonprofit organizations. The other way to use site or domain is to type in a full web address there. So you are basically telling Google to search only this website. So I typically suggest it for websites that are really dense, have a lot of information, but maybe they're poorly organized, or maybe they lack a good search function. So you can use Google and this advanced like all of these advanced fields to search a website. The best examples come from government websites. I often tell my students about the EPA's website because it has so much stuff and the searching, it's improved, but it used to be so bad. But I'm going to kind of show you a side-by-side of HUD.gov. So if you go into HUD and you search for domestic violence, it gives you almost 1,300 results. But the only other way that you can filter these results is by going to images. So otherwise, you're going through and hopefully finding something. Maybe you add additional keywords here, but you're getting PDFs, you're getting Word documents, you're getting web pages. But you can run that same search using advanced Google for domestic violence within the HUD website. And maybe you just want to see PDFs. And so you do that file type PDF. And now I've got all of my results that are, when I click on them, PDFs. I could do the same thing for PowerPoints. We didn't talk about it, but you can restrict by time. So I can look for things that are in the past 6 months or the past year, or even the past 24 hours. If it's a new news story and I want to see how it's being addressed, I can limit it to just the past 24 hours. So now you're getting the ability to do some more advanced searching, even though HUD's website doesn't provide that searching capability. So that's a really great use of the advanced Google domain or site. So I just praised Google, said they're doing a great job. I love their advanced search. What would we do without Google? But I'm going to backtrack a little and give a little warning about Google Bard and maybe include ChatGPT in that for this moment in time. So as of last year, November 2022, ChatGPT was released as a large language model-based chat box. And it basically generates human-like text responses to questions. So then we saw these other ones. Google Bard came out in 2023. And so we have these large language-based models that are drawing from a universe given by the engineers who create them. Sometimes it's time limited. Sometimes it's we don't know what it's being fed. So the time limits in ChatGPT kind of make us wonder whether it's up to date and reliable. The fact that we don't know everything that it's getting is also a big question mark. You might have seen news stories about lawyers who filed filings in a case, and it was determined that they used I think it was chat, and it had fake citations in it. So they're called hallucinations, and they occur in ChatGPT and Google Bard. So I've had two experiences that I wanted to share with you just so that it's real, that we had someone provide us with this citation from the Northern District of California and the summary of the case. And it looks real. It looks like it was relevant to the search that was done. And this person said, I got this result, but I can't find the case anywhere. And so all the librarians are looking in Pacer, in the court websites. It doesn't exist. it's just made up, even though it looks good. It's relevant to the research they were doing, and it's a nice little summary. It's formatted like you would expect a federal case to be formatted, but it's not real. And then I fed Google Bard my midterm question to see, would it answer it correctly, and what would it give me as a response? And it made up a Florida statute. Like, again, it looks like a Florida statute. It gave me quoted language from a Florida statute. I went back and looked at old statutes to make sure it wasn't something that was repealed. But it, as far as I know, never existed. They just made up language and made up a citation. So as of this moment, as of December 2023, I don't recommend using Google or Chat GPT for legal research. There's a million other things you can use it for, and it's changing quickly. I see an immense potential for using this, but right now it's not so much. And I've kind of questioned my students as well, and I think they're a little skeptical of it for legal research too. So if you are using it, be sure to double check that those citations are real and do say what they say they are saying. Westlaw and Lexis are in the process of releasing their AI generated research. We just got access to Lexis. I think this is probably very different, and it's, again, has real potential to change how we approach legal research. But just this warning's for Google. Just be careful. Okay, so let's take a little look at how Boolean works and some just kind of stuff about Westlaw and Lexis. I'm going to focus more on Westlaw because I believe most of the legal services attorneys are using Westlaw, but Lexis, it's similar. So it applies if you are a Lexis user. So we talked about the and, or, and not for Boolean. And with Westlaw, you can use the ampersand for and. You can use simply a space between words for or, and the percentage sign for not. I'm sure you all know this. The thing that I did want to point out is how things have changed over the years and as Westlaw evolved. So it used to be that you said, I want to do a natural language search. And so you would just type natural language after you chose that. Or you said, you kind of chose something different and said, I want to do Boolean, and you would use these connectors. They've eventually got rid of that choice, and there's just that one box. And I think a lot of people just assume if I'm using the and or not, that it's recognizing I'm not doing a natural language search. But that's not necessarily the case. It's not like the Boolean search is not necessarily triggered by the Boolean connectors. You want to double check that in your settings, there's a search tab for preferences, and there's a place to like check off, like if I'm using Boolean connectors, treat it like a Boolean search and not a natural language search. So if you've been using Boolean and not getting the results that you thought you should be getting, it's not recognizing some of your Boolean connectors, maybe go in and check your settings to make sure that Westlaw is recognizing Boolean searches as Boolean. Some additional kind of advanced root expanders, proximity connectors, and wildcards. Just a review, /s, /p, or / a number. So that's if you want two terms to be within the same sentence, within the same paragraph, or within so many number of words between each other. So they're not appearing, at the beginning of the case or and then at the end of the case, meaning they're not really connected, and maybe not as related in the case itself. For the exclamation point, this is any variations on the end of a word. So you put represent and an exclamation point, and it's going to pull up representative, representation, represent, any kind of variation. And then the asterisk is the wildcard for a single letter. So if you used it in the word WOM asterisk N, it's going to find woman, women, and any variations. So just like Google, the advanced search has a form that's going to help you do some research and narrow down your findings. The thing to note is this form changes depending on what you're looking at. So if you're looking at cases, it looks different than if you're looking at statutes, or if you're looking at secondary sources. The fields change a little bit, and what you're able to use it for changes a little bit. But at the top, this pretty much stays the same. And this is just like in Google, helping you build that Boolean search by, you can put all of these terms, any of these terms, phrase or not. So you can put things in there and it puts the Boolean connectors in for you. And the rest of them are document fields. So if you are looking for something like a judge, a party name, docket number, if you already know the case exists, that's when you use those. You're just trying to find, that particular case using the information you have, or other cases from a judge, something like that. Or you have like head note or case keywords or synopsis, and that's telling you where in the opinion that something's located. But one field that I want to point out that I realized that a lot of the students didn't know about it, but it turns out to be pretty helpful. Way down at the bottom is words and phrases. And so you use words and phrases to find when a case has been, when a word has been defined by the court. Words and phrases also exist for statutes. So you want to see how a word is defined in a statute. If you just put a phrase in quotation marks, it's looking for that phrase itself. If you just put a word and you search, it's just looking for that word's appearance. But when you put it in words and phrases, it's looking to see, has it been defined by the court? So let me show you a quick example. So at the top is when I put pedestrian in Florida cases. And I'm gonna get 1,363 cases because courts have mentioned the word pedestrian that many times. Could be in the facts, it could be in law, but it just appears anywhere in the case. But when I use pedestrian with words and phrases, it's showing me 5 times that Florida courts have actually defined pedestrian. And it would be the same thing if you use words and phrases in a statute as well. So those definitions, this isn't like Black's Law Dictionary where it's showing you kind of a general definition. It's showing you in Florida, these courts have defined it. So that's something that I find pretty helpful when I'm doing some research. You can also find words and phrases when you just start typing, it suggests it as a content page. And that's almost using it like Black's Law Dictionary because it's going to give you all of the times it's been defined by any courts. And this is, it used to be published as a book, like a book series, like an encyclopedia. You can pull it off the shelf and see all of the courts, all the statutes and how they defined a word. So that's just another way you can get to the words and phrases. People often ask, do you have a preference for Westlaw? Do you have a preference for Lexis? And I always suggest trying to use both while you're in law school and have the opportunity. And I don't necessarily have a preference, but I like to point out if there are differences. So one difference that a lot of people don't know about is in the head notes. So at the top is a Westlaw head note, and these are taken from the case, but there are attorneys who pull out important points and summarize them. I say that that's how it was done. It might be AI now. I don't know, but either way, it's a summary of what was said in the case. Lexis head notes use direct quotes, so their head notes are the language from the court itself. And the only reason I point that out, it's not too big of a difference, is that I've seen errors in Westlaw head notes. They'll say like the exact opposite of what it says in the case itself. And then we kind of like drop a note to Westlaw and it gets fixed. But I guess that extra step of having an attorney editor select and summarize, there is that room for error. So head notes are great. They help us with our research. They help us find things, but make sure the headnotes say what they actually say in the case. If you're using Westlaw and Lexis, it's just a given because it's a quote. So some changes, everything changes constantly, but these are some great additions that Westlaw's made to their ways to key cite. So there's a new category called key cited with, and that is if two or more cases keep appearing together, like in a string cite, but they don't necessarily cite to each other. So if you went to case A, you wouldn't see any reference to case B, and case B is not citing case A, but all of these other cases that came after it are using them together in a string cite. Westlaw's kind of grouping those together now. So when you're viewing a case, there's a tab at the top, and you can look for key cited with. So it's just another way to find cases that are related. And that's a great new addition. And then we have some new flags. We have a blue striped flag for things that have been appealed to the United States Supreme Court or a U.S. appellate court. We have the red striped flag, which is overruled in part. So it used to be we just had the red flag, and that the entire case wasn't necessarily bad law, right? It might just have been one aspect of the case that was overruled, but they only had one flag for that. It was just the red flag. Now they use the red striped flag to indicate, hey, there's other things going on in this case. Only this thing was overruled. And you're able to quickly find what has been overruled and what still stands. And then we have an orange warning sign that there's if you're looking at a case or an admin decision, it might not be good because of its reliance on something else that's been overruled and otherwise invalid. And that didn't exist before. It was only if there was like an outright mention of a case. This is if a case is relying on another case that doesn't mention it, but that other case has been overruled. So there's an overruling risk. You might not have Westlaw Precision yet. I know they roll it out at different times for different organizations, but it's coming eventually. That's how they always it will be there when I guess when you least expect it. But if you don't have it already, Precision is a new way to research on Westlaw where you can narrow things down either before you start searching or once you search, you can use the filters. And there's things like area of law or motion type. So you just want summary judgments that have been granted or summary judgments that have been denied. After you do some searching, you can put in your motion type or like similar fact patterns or causes of action. So these again are just really helpful ways to filter out when you get 10,000 results, but you want something that's more on point. Where to get help? There are really wonderful reference attorneys at both Westlaw and Lexis that you can either chat with or call. And I think a lot of people don't realize this. They just, get stuck in the loop of researching, can't find what they are looking for and get frustrated. But you can quickly pick up the phone or drop them a chat and say like, I'm looking for this, my keywords just aren't working. They can give you suggested searches. They can tell you, hey, have you tried this database or this secondary source? It might answer your question. So like I encourage you to reach out to the people that provide you the product. You can also reach out to your rep for training or videos for your organization. And they also post a lot of those to YouTube. So you can search for YouTube and see if there's anything from Westlaw or Lexis. But some libraries and law libraries also post instructional videos. So you can look for those for Westlaw, but also just general research posted by a law librarian. A video might be helpful to help you solve your problems. Okay, so we talked kind of generally about some research in Westlaw, Lexis, and Google. let's kind of go a little bit into something more specific, and that's legislative research. And the number one question I receive from lawyers and students working in firms is for copies of historical statutes or legislative history. Yesterday, a DOJ librarian was asking for Florida statutes. So if you just need the text of the statute itself, Westlaw has back to 1987. I think Lexis is around the same time, but they're not PDFs. They're just how you're used to seeing Westlaw text. And sometimes I know judges require copies of PDFs from the actual text themselves. Online Sunshine has back to from 1998 to present, but again, not PDFs. And so we were getting tons of calls for copies from the books because we have the books at the law library. Lots of law firms run out of space. They tossed their books. So you can still call. Most law libraries are going to have the complete collection of Florida statutes. But we also at FSU digitized from 1945 to 1996 of the PDFs. So they look just like the print looks. So you can get that online. And again, that link is in the list of links that I provided at the beginning. I'll also show you how to get there. So if you go to the FSU College of Law website, under the Research Center tab, there's digital legal collections. And then you can choose statutes, and you can choose your year, and then kind of expand the title and the chapters to get those PDFs. Just a warning, there's a glitch in the database right now. So you sometimes just have to refresh the page in between changing your years. And then it will allow you to expand these, otherwise they don't expand. IT's working on it, they've been working on it. It's an easy fix, you just refresh it, but it's super annoying. Apologize if you're trying to find these for that glitch, but they're there. The PDFs are there from the 40s to the 90s, and everyone has access. This is available to the public. Just a little kind of thing to remember, if you're using either print Florida statutes, or if you're using our digital project of the digital statutes, because they're from the books, they follow the same format. And prior to 1999, the Florida statutes weren't published in their entirety every year. Now they publish all the statutes every single year, but prior to 1999, they were only published in their entirety in odd numbered years. And then in the even numbered years, they just produced a supplement, or those laws that were changed by the legislature in that year. So if you look in 1982 and a statute doesn't appear, it's because it wasn't either created or amended or touched by the legislature that year. So you go back to 1981 and find that statute, and that's the statute that was in effect for 1982. So just a little extra step that you have to do for some of those older ones if you're looking in print, or if you're looking on our digital projects page. So that's how to find just the text itself to see what law was in effect in a certain year. If you want to see changes of a law over time, you're going to use the laws of Florida or session laws. And so after you read the text of a statute, at the bottom is going to be a credit or sources line, and it's going to list citations to Florida, laws of Florida or session laws. The first one is when it was enacted, and then each subsequent one is an amendment to the law. So if you're using Westlaw or Lexis and it's a hyperlink, great. It's going to pull up your laws of Florida, and you can see the changes are going to be highlighted. If something was eliminated, they cross it out. And so you see just how the law has changed. You can pull up the next amendment and then the next amendment and see the evolution of the law itself. If you are in Westlaw and something is not highlighted, or if you're looking at it in print and nothing's hyperlinked, there's another place to look for all of those session laws online. So the Department of State has the laws of Florida online back to 1997, and then we collaborated with them to do the older ones. So from 1822 and then to 1845 and all the way up to 1996. So all of those session laws are there. You just have to pull the citation from the credit section and then find your year and the number. And so in this case, they don't have the highlights. It's either going to be crossed out or sometimes underlined if it's a new edition. And that is the Florida session laws. So the other thing people look for, in addition to the text and the changes in the text, are legislative history documents. So there's some additional roadblocks to finding the legislative history. Definitely not all available online with 1 or 2 clicks. So prior to 1969, they didn't really hold on to much. So you could find the text of a bill, you could find the voting, you could find Senate and House journals, but they didn't keep any staff analysis. They didn't keep anything that went on in the committees. Just doesn't really exist. And then until the mid-70s, they started keeping stuff, but they did it inconsistently. So I guess some of those important laws you can find more, but if it was just something that was done, it didn't necessarily get saved. Then they really started holding on to everything in the mid-70s to 1988. But it existed in print and most of it hasn't been digitized. So this is something that you would have to call the archives in Tallahassee and say, hey, do you have anything for this? Either send a researcher over, pay for copies. And then 1988 to 1997, all the stuff still exists in print at the archives, but some of it's been digitized. There's microfilm that most law libraries have. And then some of it has been digitized by us. I'm going to talk about a project that we did that you have access to. And then once we get to 1997, the House and Senate websites pretty much have everything digitized and available, so you don't have to call. You don't have to be looking at microfilm. So how to get that legislative history material? Again, if you're using Westlaw, you can go up to the top of a statute, and if it has history, legislative history materials, you're going to find some stuff there. But again, they're not going to have anything older than 1997. But what they have is going to be available on Westlaw's legislative history. If you're using, if they don't have something that you're looking for, and you need to dig a little bit further, there's an extra step involved. So finding the documents on the House and Senate website, they don't organize them by session law. So again, remember the credit section had those session law citations. You need to then find the session law to find the bill number. It's just a silly extra step. So if you went to the laws of Florida on the State Department's website, if you found your session law, you just kind of go across and it lists the House or Senate bill. Or if you open up the session law itself, it's usually at the top. It'll say House Bill number 1126. So you jot that down. Now you have your session law, you have your bill number, and you can go either to the House or the Senate website for Florida. And if it's post 1997, you can put in your year and your bill number, and it will give you the documents that they have. So in this case, again, you have the bill text, you can see amendments and vote history, but people are really often looking for that staff analysis. And so you can get that here in the form of a PDF. The other thing to note is the committees that actually heard a bill. Because what they don't have on this page for the bill is anything that came out of the committee. So you can then go into the committee websites that heard this bill and see if they have any materials available. So if you went to the community affairs and you found your bill, there's meeting packets. You can see the votes from within the committee. Really anything that a speaker provided to the committee, it would be in there. So the committee website is somewhere to look in addition to the staff analysis. And those committee websites also sometimes have live video, but also video archives and audio archives. So the other place to look for 1998 and beyond legislative history documents is another project that we did at Florida State. There was a research firm in Tallahassee that lawyers and lobbyists would call and say, hey, can you compile the history for us? So they would go to the Capitol or the archives and get everything that existed about a bill. When that research firm stopped doing research, they donated all of their files to us. So we've been digitizing them. So this is an ongoing project. Been digitizing since 2019. So we're still adding things, still labeling things. And so this is just another place you can check to avoid having to call the archives to get the print materials from them. So just to kind of review the different places you can look for the Florida legislative history documents. You can look in Westlaw, you can look in House and Senate websites, but those are probably 1996 and beyond. Some random legislative histories are available on our digital projects page. But if you're not finding what you need, a call to your state archives or a call to your local law library or law school library might be able to help you with the microfilm or the print documents that exist. It's kind of the opposite of tracking the history of a statute. Is keeping track of current legislation and bills. You can do that the same way that you do the history. So you can look on the Florida Senate and House websites. Again, they sometimes have those live videos, but you can also see amendments that have been filed, the vote history, what committees have heard and filed staff analysis. And then Westlaw and Lexis have a database called Proposed Legislation, where you can get those documents as well. You can also usually sign up for email updates to track like particular legislation, so it ends up in your inbox. You don't have to continually go back to the website. One of the other things we're asked is, how do you find something that's not in Florida? So you need to, we're close to Georgia. Maybe you just need to compare it to what's going on in Wisconsin or California. So if you need to find laws or legislation from another state, you apply a similar process as you would for Florida. You look on Westlaw, you look to see if there are state websites or any digital projects done by law libraries. The other thing I wanted to point out is if you need to compare Florida law to multiple states, or if you need to keep track of a legal issue on a national scale, the terminology is a 50-state survey, and there's a couple different places that you can find these. So Westlaw, if you start typing 50 state, some of the content pages that are suggested are 50 state surveys, statutory surveys, regulatory surveys, or the topics themselves. So if you go into the 50 state surveys, it then gives you all of the topics that it has. And when you choose one, such as family law, it gives you the topics, and then you can check the areas that you need. So the results, it's pretty amazing. You have the topic that you're looking for, and it goes state by state and provides you with the statutes and kind of a brief summary of what's going on in that state. And because it's Westlaw, like the hyperlinks to the statutes right there, so you can pull up the language. So if they have what you need for a 50-state survey, this just saves a lot of work, a lot of legal research already done for you. Another place to access 50-state surveys is Hein Online. And I'm actually going to talk about this a little bit later, how you might have access to Hein Online. It's a paid website, but it's available in a lot of libraries. So again, you choose your topic, and it's going to show you state by state the information about that topic. So in this case, adoption, although it's not hyperlinked in this case, it's just giving you a summary. So Westlaw and Hein are both paid, but a really wonderful free resource for 50-state surveys is the National Conference of State Legislatures. In this website, you can basically create your own chart, pick your topics, pick the states or all states, and it's going to create exactly what Westlaw and Hein did. It's going to give you kind of a report of what's going on in those states, and it's free. So if they have the topics you need, that's a great source for 50-state surveys. And then there's other, nonprofits that do 50-state surveys and then put them on their website. So don't forget how to do your advanced Google searching. You type in PDF and you type in a nonprofit and your keywords and maybe 50-state survey. And in this case, the American Bar Association's Commission on Law and Aging did a 50-state survey that's available out there for free as well. So that was kind of a deep dive into legislation, bills, and legislative history. I'm going to do just kind of a quick overview of admin law research because it is both the same and very different. So people need historical regulations. What reg was in effect in 1996? You can get back to 2010 on Westlaw. We used to have a database on FSU's website that digitized them, but it's a little more complicated. So they don't publish the admin regs every single year or every other year. They for the print, they would send replacement pages for things that have been updated, and they would send them throughout the years. So in the past, before my time, those replacement pages weren't always kept. So it's hard to track what was in effect on this day or how this law changed. All of this to say is it can be a little complicated. So if you're in a law library or you're requesting this from a law library, it's not as easy as the statutes to say this is what was in effect on this exact day. We kind of give some warnings that this is our best approximation of what was going on at that time, but it's complicated and ask for help. But there are some really helpful admin resources out there. So the Falcon website in Florida has the ability to give you kind of the history and all the filings for a rule. Just be sure to choose all rules. And then it gives you all of the notices or kind of the final language or the proposed language, so you can compare the difference. We also have the Florida Rules website where they have the Florida Admin Code and the Administrative Register. And that Administrative Register is going to help you kind of track and see how something has changed over time. So when you give a chapter or a section specifically, it gives you kind of similar to what was in Falcon, those notices, the changes in language, the proposed language. And so then also tracking current regulations, kind of the same thing. You can use Falcon, you can use Florida Administrative Register, and Westlaw and Lexis also has a database for proposed regulations. Another place to check if you're kind of keeping up with changes in rules is the agency websites themselves. So they're required on an annual basis to file a regulatory plan. So that shows you either the laws or the regs that were changed in the prior year. So you kind of just want a summary. go to the agency website and look for that regulatory plan for the year prior. And again, if you want to see 50 state surveys for regulations, Westlaw has a regulatory 50 state surveys. You can also look at state websites to see if the regulations are posted, and those national advocacy organizations to see if somebody did the work for you already. Okay, so resources from local law libraries and law school libraries. So these are some things that are both available in person and online. So I'm speaking about FSU alumni. We have online alumni access for Hein Online. I went to Penn State as an undergrad, and they send me things that say I can access scholarly databases and some business databases with my alumni passwords. So check with your law school, check with your undergrad institution, and see, do you offer access to any databases for alumni? You might have things that you didn't know you had. And it's just kind of nice to have for alumni. Just kind of looking just a little bit closer at Hein, I had mentioned it for the 50 state surveys. That was the national survey of state laws. But they also have an incredible amount of other resources, like journals, ABA publications, a preview of Supreme Court cases. And then they do these collected libraries on topics. So things like civil rights and social justice, where they put a bunch of information, treatises, government reports, Supreme Court briefs, all about civil rights and social justice here. And they're always PDFs. They look just like the books or the reports. So it's a great resource if they have a library. Another one on LGBTQ and rights. I think they have one on immigration as well. So Hein Online, not the easiest to search, but when you do find something helpful, it's just the authenticated documents in the form of a PDF that you can use for your research. So if you live by a law school library or you have a great public library, there's some things that you can get in person. So people forget about books, but we are filled with books, and you might have lending privileges even at a law school. So at FSU, people from the public can check out our books. We just have some forms for them to fill out, and we have public hours for people to come in and do research. So those really expensive secondary sources that people don't want to buy and fill their offices with, you can come into the law library and use them when we're open to the public. So just check with your law library about their public hours and their lending policies. Interlibrary loan, if you have a public library nearby and you have a library card and they don't have a book, they can order it or attempt to order it from another library, have it shipped, and then you can use, check out the book and use it even though it's from Kansas or Montana. So that's interlibrary loan. Public computers. So certain libraries have access to public computers. There might be fees for printing, or there you could have some free printing, but the Supreme Court Library has a Westlaw terminal. You can go there and use Westlaw. Our databases that are available on our public computers are anything that doesn't require a individual password. So not Westlaw, not Lexis, not Bloomberg, but Hein Online and Florida Law Weekly. We have Nexus Uni, which is like Lexis Lite. It doesn't have everything that's in Lexis, but you can search cases and statutes and regs. So there are some databases available to the public if you come in and use the public computers. But there's also librarians, a resource to use for help. We don't really do extensive online reference or over the phone reference. But if you're at a law library in person and there's librarians, they might be able to point you in the right direction. Have you thought of this treatise or this secondary source? And that's just another benefit of coming in the library in person. Or if you just have a library card to your public library, there are things you can do and use without ever stepping foot inside of them. And again, this differs based on where you're located, but you might be able to get access to New York Times or local newspapers or national newspapers. There are often government document databases and scholarly paper databases. I wanted to point out just an example of a public library that has like a really great legal collection, and that's the Palm Beach County Library. They have a government research librarian who specializes just in government and legal issues. But they also have legal forms available online, Unicode, Nexus, Uni, and a link to the Palm Beach Clerk self-service. So just your public library might not have as much as Palm Beach County, but check, there's some really great resources that might be available with just a library card. I mentioned in passing a couple of Florida State's digital collections, and I just wanted to kind of highlight that it is a collaboration that we have between all of the academic law libraries throughout Florida. Everybody contributes, and then we host the material. So we have Florida Supreme Court historical briefs and videos of oral arguments. I talked about the statutes. These dates are actually wrong. They're even older. And then our legislative history documents, things like the archive of the Florida Constitution Revision Commission website and all of the materials that go along with the Revision Commission. And then that Laws of Florida session laws collaboration with the state archives. So other law school libraries have other digital projects and in Florida and other states as well. So you can look and see if anything else is available that you're looking for. And the last thing I wanted to cover is just a quick slide about current events and current legal news sources. So if you need kind of nonpartisan research, CRS reports, really helpful. So any member of Congress can request a report about pretty much anything that's coming in front of them. So often a lot of the big current news topics or anything that they're drafting bills on. But now those reports are also available for free on the CRS website. It used to be in other paid databases, but I've included that link on the list of websites that I talked about. Those are CRS reports. Legal database news. So that's Westlaw has Reuters, Lexis has Law 360, so you can keep track of what's going on in the legal world there. But Reuters.com, you can get it through Westlaw, but you can also just sign up for a free subscription and view their articles there. And then the final thing is legal news aggregators. And so basically, these are taking law firm websites, and often attorneys write kind of something about a topic, and these are pooling all of those law firm website articles. So they're written by attorneys, and you can access them through Mondac, JD Supra, and Lexology. So it's another way to kind of get lawyer-written posts or lawyer-written articles about topics. So that's everything that I have for you today. Feels like it was a lot. I hope you found a couple of things that you didn't know about or some different approaches that you can take when you're doing your research. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has questions.
Thank you so much, Katie. That was awesome. I mean, just so many sources that I know I didn't know about, and just so many tips and tricks that for example, I even forgot about way back in the beginning of your presentation. I forgot about not. I search and or Boolean searches all the time, but I forgot about not. Like, how did I forget that? But so thank you so much, Katie. This was awesome. I'm gonna put in the chat for all of our attendees. I already posted the link of the resources that you mentioned, but just to bring it down in the thread, I posted it again in the chat for everyone. check it out. It's an awesome resource link that Katie put together for us, really just letting you get access to all these things that we've been talking about. Also, I put a little note in there as well, just a reminder for anyone that might have joined late. The Florida Bar is still processing this CLE credit. As soon as I receive that CLE code, I will email you all. I have your emails on a registration list. So don't worry, you know I always get you your credits. So while folks are thinking of any questions they might have, please feel free to drop them in the chat or the Q&A. There is one question I wanted to ask you, Katie, because I've been approached as well by our paralegals or our staff about training for paralegals, and I know we probably have paralegals on here as well as attorneys. Is there anything different that paralegals should know about legal research, or is it really the same because our paralegals are so often doing the same research that we do using the same platforms?
So I think that most of what I talked about today is going to be available to paralegals and like applies equally to the what they're doing. So the only thing that I can think of that would be different is that they might not have the alumni access from like a law school, but they could still have lending privileges from a law school if they come in. Certain law schools, I can't speak for all of them. If they fill out that paperwork, they can still use the library, ask the librarian questions. Yeah, so I think it's all applicable. They can still call Westlaw and ask those reference attorneys for assistance. So yeah, that it applies equally. It's research to both paralegals and lawyers.
Good to know. Good to know. Well, you heard it, folks. You've got your resources here. I guess the next step is get out there and use them. Get out there and practice, right? I will also let folks know that coming in 2024, I believe we're starting in January, we will be having something I'm calling Westlaw Wednesdays, where I did reach out to our Westlaw rep as reminded by Katie when we were creating this training opportunity. And I asked them to create a legal aid litigation research Westlaw Wednesdays package. So that will be coming to you just to reinforce all of the awesome stuff that we learned from Katie today. And so with no questions in the chat, I imagine everybody is digesting and just eager to, I know me, I'm eager to rewatch this alone on my own time and actually start plugging and chugging some things and practicing. And so, with no questions in the chat, I just want to say, Katie, thank you so much. It was really great to learn from you. You're incredibly, you break things down in a way and a very, very calm and very, very focused training. So I know for me, I learned a lot. And as you can see in the chat and in the Q&A, there are plenty of thank yous. So I know it's felt throughout our training community that we have here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy holidays, everyone. I know we're a little early, but I'm not going to see Katie again before them. See you. Hopefully we get to collaborate again in the future. I would really like that.
Great. Thanks.
All right. Bye, everyone.